Hello, everybody. I know we are right at 12 o'clock, which means it is time for HC Live. Of course, we do these every week here at the Houston Chronicle. My name is Colleen Baker. For those of y'all who don't know, I am a producer here at the Houston Chronicle. And today, of course, we are here to talk about Mayor Annise Parker, and we are very excited to have her on board. Before she and John Lomax, our reporter, get on, I wanted to check and make sure that everyone can hear us okay and see us. So absolutely start letting us know in the chat where you are tuning in from. If you are in, the Montrose area, like Mayor Parker is, or if you are somewhere in the Galleria area, like John Lomax and I reporting live from the Houston Chronicle building. I can definitely see people tuning in from Meyerland, from Conroe in the chat, Montrose, Edo, Spring Branch, Memorial Park area, East End, Tanglewood. Wonderful. Okay, so that means plenty of people are in the chat. I want to take just a quick second while everyone is logging on to make sure that you are aware. After this conversation, we always put these up on our YouTube channel from the Houston Chronicle. So give us a little bit of time. Within 48 hours max, it will be up. And so that you don't miss it, you can always follow our HoustonChronicle.com/events page or follow the Houston Chronicle events newsletter. The HC Live newsletter goes out every Tuesday morning. So I already see some of your fans, Mayor Parker, saying that they follow you on Instagram and some of their social media as well. So we will also be taking audience questions live. So in right now, start asking your questions for Mayor Parker, leaving them in the chat for she or for John, who can always, shed some light on his reporting. Right now, he's covering all races, all things county, everything like that. So start going ahead and submitting your questions. And John, I want to make sure you can hear me loud and clear. You there?
All good on my end. Yep.
Wonderful. Take it away, John.
All righty. Well, thank you for joining us today, Annise. It's a pleasure to have you. I think we're going to go ahead and jump in with a fairly straightforward one. Obviously, you have a legacy here in Houston. You served nearly 20 years in various positions in the city, and most notably 3 terms as mayor. And so considering the differences between, the position of mayor and Harris County judge, how do you feel like your experience as Houston's mayor is going to help prepare you for that position?
It's an executive position. It is a position in which you have to make decisions and stick with those decisions. It's also a position in which you're the presiding officer of a legislative body. You have to work with your colleagues and make sure that the needs of the county are met. You're right, it's a very, very different position in that Houston's the strongest strong mayor city in the United States, and the county judge is actually in some ways the least powerful of the 5 members of Commissioner's Court. I had thought about running for that position when I left the mayor's office 10 years ago, nearly now. And I'm probably better off that I went back into the private sector and spent some time away, because it is a very different position in terms of the actual authority. But in terms of what the skill set is that's needed to do the job, I absolutely have that. And I think I've honed and polished some of those skills with the jobs I've had in the interim.
Appreciate your answer there. I wonder if I could just get you to elaborate a little bit on what some of those skills that you've developed are.
Well, obviously, as mayor of Houston, I had administrative authority over a workforce of 24,000 people and a $5 billion budget. So you have some comparability there. Although as county judge, you have just your immediate staff. And the job is working with the other countywide elected officials and the commissioners to move the county's agenda forward. One thing that is the same, unfortunately, we have seen in the last few weeks what happens when a county fails its first responsibility, which is emergency management. And the local county judge is the senior emergency management official in every county. Just as mayor of Houston, I was the senior emergency management person for the city. Although I relied heavily on the first responders and the team we put together to actually manage the emergency response.
The current judge, Judge Lena Hidalgo, she's on her second term, obviously has not publicly declared whether she'll be running again. But she's emerged as a bit of a divisive figure among Democrats and Republicans alike. And I'm curious, what are some of the things that you sort of admire about her leadership style, and what are some of the things that you might do differently?
One thing that I have consistently said is that I appreciate the way she stepped up during COVID, that the quick and decisive action that she took, particularly in shutting down the rodeo, very controversial decision, but her willingness to make it, to step in, to do the right thing for public safety, I think is impressive. And I wish that she had been able to lead more directly in that way. But to be clear, I'm not planning on running for or against Lena Hidalgo. I'm running because I think I have the best skill set for this job of anybody in Harris County that's interested in running for the job, certainly. And that I don't know who else might be in the race. She does have, I think, some challenges in managing the meeting and managing the relationship with her colleagues. I have a great track record, and clearly, as someone who was in office, not 20 years, only 18, but as someone who's in office for that long, I have a resume, I have a track record. Anybody's welcome to go back and look, talk to the people I worked with. I can work up across the aisle. I can work with the 34 cities in Harris County. I obviously clearly understand the roles that the mayor and council members have. I worked closely with the surrounding county judges when I was mayor. This is really about building relationships and building coalitions because, frankly, in my view, every challenge the county faces is going to get worse before it gets better, primarily because of the chaos in Washington and the drumbeat of attacks from this, the state capitol on local jurisdictions. Everything rolls downhill, and we have to be prepared to pick up the slack.
That note of things sort of rolling downhill, what are some of the kind of major concerns you have with regard to the state and federal government?
Well, again, I don't know that I would give great marks to the state or the federal government for their handling of the Independence Day floods. The fact that the president publicly announced that he was going to dismantle FEMA, and now he's waffling or backpedaling. He's still undermining the work of FEMA. I've lived my entire life here in the United States in the hurricane belt, in the coastal states. We need and depend on FEMA to help coordinate the response at the macro level and to make sure that funding goes where it needs to go. I'm also concerned that the weather forecasters at NOAA, the hurricane forecasters that have left, and the loss of knowledge there and what it may mean. Again, we're in the midst of hurricane season, but all of the other things as well. I know the Commissioner's Court just voted on revisiting how to deal with flood management here in Harris County, operating the flood control district. A big element of that conversation was we did a bond election, $2.5 billion. It was to leverage $5 billion worth of projects. Those projects have stalled and delayed. How much of that is coming from Washington? How much of that is coming from problems with the state? How much of it is coming from internal problems? I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to get in there, to look under the hood and see if my experience moving a large bureaucracy can help with that.
I think one thing that we've heard from some of the more progressive members of the Democratic Party and residents and precinct chairs alike is some concerns over your endorsement for former District Attorney Kim Ogg and a perceived sort of reticence to endorse Judge Lina Hidalgo in 2022. How would you kind of respond to those voters who are concerned that you may not be progressive enough?
I don't know whether I'm progressive enough or not for someone. That's not the issue. It's whether I have the skill set to lead and serve as the Harris County judge. I think everybody, or most people who follow me, are aware that one of the things I did after I left office for the last 7 years, I ran a Washington-based nonpartisan PAC that focused strictly on endorsing LGBT candidates. Lina Hidalgo was not one of the endorsed candidates of my organization. Kim Ogg was. And as part of my mandate and my contract, I supported candidates across the country. No one complains that I went in just as hard for Molly Cook as part of my job as I went in for Kim Ogg. Now, I happen to think that since she's lost the primary, she's lost her way. Frankly, I think she's lost her mind a little bit and gone hard right. She has indicated her support for my campaign. I have rejected that support. I said I don't want her endorsement, and I don't know what else. I'm not her mother, and I'm not her boss, so I can't make her stop talking about me. But I've said I reject everything she currently stands for, so I think we should move on.
There was some, obviously you had a lot of achievements as mayor of Houston, but there are some sort of things that people have criticized you over, and that includes sort of the beginnings of the firefighter contract dispute, the Build Houston Forward, many different names, drainage lawsuit, and finally, checking my notes here, the controversy over the red light cameras and sort of your unilateral decision to install or reactivate them, and then your resolution afterwards to deactivate them. What are some of the things you learned there, and what are your thoughts?
So, John, I'm going to have to say that half of that was just wrong, and maybe we should unpack some of that. So, like I passed the drainage fee. Proud of the drainage fee because we have the necessary investment to prevent flooding in Houston and rebuild Houston. The fact that Sylvester Turner came in and abused the process, I think he broke faith with the voters, and that was, my position on that was vindicated by the judicial process in this recent settlement. So we're back to the deal I originally took to the voters. I think it's important to be clear that I wasn't sued, and I didn't do the things that brought that lawsuit. The red light camera issue was a complicated one. The red light cameras I believe in red light cameras, and I think that they save lives, but the contract was actually executed by Bill White, and it was one of the very few contracts in the city of Houston. In fact, in his last month or so in office, he and the council opened that contract and deleted the cancellation for convenience clause in the contract. Most city contracts have a cancellation for convenience. So when the voter petition hit my desk, we had a contract that I could not cancel. So I had a legally binding contract, but I had a mandate from the voters to cancel it. So I was trying to juggle two impossible situations. That voter mandate, when I finally was able to unwind that contract, cost the city of Houston $10 million. I'm still frustrated and angry about being put in that position, but I'm also proud of the fact that I was able to navigate what was a very challenging situation. The only thing that there are always, anybody who's in office as long as I was, there are things that I wish I had a do-over, wish I could have done differently. But the one big regret I have in those 18 years is, in the 6 years as mayor, was the HERO ordinance and the fact that it was defeated at the ballot box. 4 times in my adult life, people in Houston and in the state of Texas have voted that I have fewer civil rights than my neighbors.
Just a quick note on the drainage lawsuit. I don't think it was the criticism we've heard that they were blaming you for the lawsuit itself. I think the argument that we're hearing is that it was an unrealistic calculation to begin with, considering the city's revenue cap, and how it would take a large slice out of a budget where you have to kind of consistently reduce.
Argue with you again. It is not a tax. It is not tax revenue. It is a drainage fee, so it is not subject to the tax revenue limitation.
Thank you for that context. We'll move on to a more of a general question here. What are some of the things that you can promise to residents and voters alike?
Clean, clear, transparent government. No one's gonna work harder than I will to ensure that Harris County residents are safe, and that the county is well run and well managed. If you look at what the primary responsibilities are, we talked about emergency management, but it's management of the budget. But you don't manage the budget to count beans. You manage the budget so you can do priority projects, so you can make sure that the other responsibilities of Harris County are accomplished. That's public health, public safety, building roads and bridges, and then the things that keep the economy humming and the things that contribute to quality of life. All of those, though, flow from having strong fiscal management, watching, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, making sure that things are well run and well managed. But it also, I can promise productive working relationships with every member of Commissioner's Court. We're not going to always agree. And I'm sure that there will be a time when I'm going to be on the end of a 4-to-1 vote, but they should be rare. But I will tell you that I know that I can maintain clear communications. And the one thing every elected official wants is never to be surprised when they go into a meeting with their colleagues, and that will never happen. The other thing I can promise is lots and lots of communication and presence and visibility in community. I went to extraordinary lengths when I was mayor to be visible and present. Every month we would do, in a quarter, we would do 1 month, it would be 3 minutes with the mayor. We'd go to a public library and I'd block off some hours, and anybody who walked in the door could have 3 minutes to ask a question, bring an issue or a problem, anything they wanted to say to me, and we grind through that. The next month I would do a webinar with the Chronicle, actually. The next month I would do a teletown hall, and then the fourth month we would do what we called merchant walks, which I would go to a strip center and just go in and out of the stores, talking to anybody who was there, talking to the sales clerks, talking to shoppers, accosting people in the parking lot. The problem with that, I mean, and I think it was very helpful because it allowed me to hear and see what was going on in different parts of a large city, and expanding that to the different parts of a very, very large county. But the problem is, as much as those efforts I think were productive, you only touch a very, very tiny percentage of the folks in your constituency. And so it requires constant effort and engagement to know what's going on in the far reaches of this really large county.
And so one other question that we've kind of seen crop up a lot is regarding transparency and accountability at the county. We've had concerns about ethics, about the county being pay to play. Is there, specifically with regards to the contracting process, are there any things that you believe the county judge has power to do that could maybe improve transparency or accountability at the county? And if so, what would those things look like?
So I will start by saying that there were no scandals on my watch in my entire time in office, not personally and not professionally, and I want to continue that high standard. I reject the idea of pay to play, but every contract has to be done with with a very scrupulous focus on making sure that it stays within the guardrails, that all the rules are followed, and that there are no conflicts of interest for the people who receive contracts or decide how a contract is led. And that depends on the engagement and the diligence of all the members of Commissioners Court. But again, the more light we can shed on what's happening down there, and frankly, one of my frustrations in following the work of Commissioners Court is that what should be a few hours of your time so you can actually follow an issue that you care about devolves into hours and hours of bickering over petty issues. I certainly hope that we can move beyond that in the future.
And so on the note of the no scandals thing, kind of considering the role of the county judge overseeing other elected officials and sort of some of the complications that come with that, what are some of the things that you would do to go about ensuring that there are no scandals under your administration?
And intrigued by your reference that the county judge overseeing other elected officials. The county judge is a member of the Commissioners Court and presides over the meetings of Commissioners Court, but is not over the individual commissioners. And the Commissioners Court does set the budget and has some oversight over the other independent elected officials, but they are also independent elected officials, and their first priority is to respond to their constituents and to the voters. So it is not as straightforward as, say, what I was used to at the city, where all the city employees worked for me.
I think with that, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Colleen for some audience questions.
Absolutely. We've had a lot of questions coming in, and actually a little bit of them are asking if you can maybe sit a little bit closer, Mayor Parker. I know we were talking about the audio, and again, we will be putting this on YouTube. We will make sure in post-production try to edit the audio so it's a little bit louder. So don't forget, we will post this and you can revisit the interview as well. We had one question actually come in ahead of time, which we always, if you follow the HC Live newsletter, you can submit questions, comments ahead of time. So I'll start off with that one. And someone was asking essentially a little bit about your role in advocating for LGBTQ rights as part of your politics in general. Obviously, you've spent the time traveling across the United States in support of these causes, and giving to time to work at the Victory Fund, et cetera. How do you integrate or play that part, or does it play a part, I should say, in how you would run as and how you did run as mayor?
It is not just my job, it is who I am. I've been an out lesbian since I was 15. I've been a lesbian activist my entire adult life. But as an example, when I became mayor of Houston, I very clearly and publicly did not engage in any kind of LGBT politics. I didn't speak out particularly on issues unless they had a direct relevance to the city of Houston. I turned down my kids. Actually, we were having a conversation this week. I turned down Undercover Boss. I turned down appearing on This Is Caitlyn Jenner. I turned down multiple opportunities to be gay in the media because my responsibility was to be mayor of Houston, and that was the highest honor of my life. And I was very clear that my roles were different. However, when the HERO ordinance, for example, came forward, Houston it remains the only major city in America that does not have any local non-discrimination protections for anyone. Recently reading in the Chronicle, I believe, about two local elected officials African-American men who were discriminated against in a club. that is what the HERO ordinance would have addressed, would have given us local tools to deal with that. So when it was relevant to the local community and my constituents, I engaged, and when it wasn't, I did not.
So, is it safe to say we won't see you on a Keeping Up with the Kardashians episode? I would be remiss to ask, but.
You don't want to hear my opinion of reality TV.
Okay, well, we obviously have a lot of other questions coming in. One was very specifically actually asking about the county administrator position and if whether or not you would keep it or revert back to not having a county administrator role. Have you thought about maybe what you would do in that situation?
I have thought about it, and I remain to be convinced that it is a good idea for Harris County. But I'm not going to presuppose until I actually get in and have an opportunity to understand the inner workings. But to me, it has reduced the clarity of who makes decisions and how things function, and it has slowed down the process.
And a lot of questions actually are also coming in all centered around homelessness. So I do want to take a second actually and toss it to you, John, to kind of set up the scene. And because people specifically were asking Mayor Parker if you would treat homelessness the same way you did back when you were mayor. Obviously, there's a lot of time that has passed since that time and now as a different time in your position running. Specifically on reduction of homelessness and challenges that have come up since you were last in office. I guess, John, over to you first. Is there anything that's framing the homelessness topic right now, I should say? Obviously, Mayor Whitmire has been involved in this. Can you shed a little bit of light on kind of what's been going on in the background?
I think we've seen some concerns arise about the programs that were implemented under Sylvester Turner's administration and sort of how the funding seems to be running out there. And there have been a lot of concerns about the growing homeless population. And we know a lot of these programs were also funded through ARPA, and obviously that money is beginning to dry up. So kind of considering the fiscal limitations here, what would be your approach to helping some of our most vulnerable residents?
It remains the gold standard in terms of city initiatives to reduce homelessness. In the 4 years in which my administration focused specifically on it, and we were able to drop overall street homelessness by more than 60%. And a lot of that momentum kept going into the Turner administration. Not what I have done professionally, but something that I have been very involved in working with agencies that deal with homelessness across the country since my time in office. It's still a passion project of mine. And I am absolutely convinced that every local municipality, every region can do a better job of managing the homelessness. And we did everything that we did with essentially the same dollars that we were already spending. We just spent it more effectively and efficiently. But you're not going to solve the problem without putting more housing stock on the ground. Without getting too deep into it, and anybody who wants to have a conversation with me about homelessness, you can shoot me an email through the campaign, and I'm happy to, I'm Annise at AnniseParker.com. And I'm happy to go in more detail about it. But we have to build housing housing at every price point, and with a significant portion of housing set aside for wraparound social services for people who cannot functionally live on their own. But housing. There's a housing crisis in America, and there's a homelessness crisis, and they are interrelated, but they are distinct. And I absolutely believe that bringing my expertise on homelessness back into government, where I can actually put a little momentum behind it, I can make a difference. One of the challenges I think that Mayor Turner had when the ARPA money came down, he tapped the ARPA money, but he took his eye off the ball of it wasn't strictly a matter of money. It was about making sure that the money was managed to a singular goal. And the problem with homelessness across the country is that you have a collective problem that is dealt with by individual agencies, and it really only responds on a macro level to a collective response where everybody's moving toward the same solution. And I was able to implement that as mayor. But, once the pressure was off, the coalition began to fray a little bit. But and it is, I actually saw a comment, one of the comments that came through, and it was about, housing first is a failure. No, housing first is absolutely what we need. We see a stray dog on the street. We want to get that stray dog off the street. How can you look at a human being living on the street and think they have less of a right to shelter than a stray animal? Come on, people. Housing first matters. This is about basic decency. No one wants to deal with street homelessness. I mean, yeah, short walk from my home, there are folks living under overpasses. That is what we tackled when I was mayor, and that is what we need to get back to. But it is not necessarily a public safety or criminalizing the homeless is not the answer. Giving them a place to go is, and that requires resources, and it requires a lot of coordination, and it also requires a mindset that understands that a significant portion of the street homeless are never going to be able to live functionally on their own, and they're always going to have a very strong, comprehensive services to keep them sheltered. And these are people with problems, but not everybody is. And so, yes, there are other, there are people who can be brought back and got on their feet again. A tremendous number of folks who are homeless across the country are families with kids, and they tend to live in their cars. They tend to couch surf, but that too is homelessness, and then we have to address it.
And related, someone else was asking specifically about gentrification. Obviously, there's a lot of ties between the two, but how well do you think Houston's adopted or adapted to kind of gentrification right now in general? And where are some potential areas that Houston still can improve? Of course, a huge topic that most Houstonians are very concerned with, if not all Texans and citizens in general, specifically climate change and the flooding. People are asking about how Harris County is prepared, obviously in the light of everything that we saw happen in the Hill Country this past 4th of July, that we've been covering at length. And there's a lot of questions about whether or not our city is prepared. We've seen Harvey, we've seen other things. I guess, and there's also a question on even how we can, what your thoughts are on mitigating heat in Houston. It's a very obviously dense and hot city. So I guess currently, what would you think now, especially in light of the events of the 4th of July, does Houston need to do better or, adjust, I guess, in the sense of where we find ourselves right now?
One of the comments I made earlier, which was that every challenge that we have is only going to get worse. We have a federal and state administration that actively deny the climate change, the evidence that we live with every day. We know the storms are going to get worse. We know that we're going to have more flooding. This area flooded when there was not a single human being here. It's going to continue to flood, and we have done things to make it worse, and climate change is going to make it worse. And we're not going to have a partner with the federal government. So we have to figure out better ways to work together down here. Harvey's not a great example because there's not any place on earth that wouldn't flood. I mean, there's out, down the road a ways there. In those 4 days, they're up to 70 inches of rain. I mean, you cannot predict that. You can't deal with that. But the direct answer to your question, we have to get those flood management projects that have been stacking up in Harris County, the $5 billion worth of projects that were originally discussed in 2018. I believe that they were reevaluated in 2022. They just voted this last week to prioritize the projects where we had leveraged dollars to get them out the door. We have to do everything humanly possible to expedite those flood management projects. And we also have to be respectful of the equity rules that Commissioners Court put in place, which was We need to be able, we need to work the problems first, if possible, in those communities that have been historically neglected and underserved. Those communities that would, in a flooding event, have the least resources to respond and recover. But we just have to get those projects out the door. What's been happening? I mean, again, they prioritized the projects where you have leveraged dollars, and that makes great fiscal sense. But sometimes that slows the work down. You have to get sign-offs from all the jurisdictions. You have to make sure who's on first, who's in charge, what order things are done. But I think you're going to see a lot of those projects move forward. Will it stop flooding in Harris County? No, it will not. So then you have to have really strong emergency management personnel. You have to have a good warning system. You have to have, you know, realistic assessments of what type of weather is coming. I was blessed when I was mayor. We didn't have a hurricane hit Houston. We had the worst drought in recorded Houston history. I had multiple ice storms. We had flooding events. I have spent time at the at the emergency center, standing. It happened to be County Judge Ed Emmett making the decision. That 4 a.m. phone call when you decide whether you're going to shut the city down, tell people to stay home. I've been there. I've done that. I know how to pick good emergency management people, and I know how to listen and work with them. But then you also have to have strong systems in place for recovery after. We will have natural disasters here. Storms are going to get worse. There will be more hurricanes. We will have ice storms. We will have floods. Preparation for, dealing during, and then recovery after. And it takes experienced hands to make that work.
Absolutely. Another question, a little bit of a pivot on topic, but I want to also weigh in first with John Lomax here, who's reporting on the county as well, specifically on overcrowding in jails. Obviously, crime is a huge, huge part of Houston news that we cover, but also on everyone's mind. We did have Sheriff Ed Gonzalez on, not HC Live, exactly where you are, not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, in fact. So, John, can you, I guess, from the county level, give us a little bit about set the scene for overcrowding in jails and kind of what it currently looks like? Because people are basically, and Mayor Parker, I want to have you weigh in on this, asking how you would weigh in of the idea that there might be another jail built, another incarceration establishment.
If we didn't have other people's prisoners, the state's prisoners, stuck in our jail, we would have a lot more flexibility to deal with our own problems. When I say everything rolls downhill, the state has abdicated its responsibility.
Yeah, I think this has emerged as a major concern, even, from a human rights issue, and then also amid the deficit, because obviously we're spending tens of millions of dollars a year to kind of get these prisoners into other facilities. And right now we're looking at a situation where we are prioritizing reducing the jail population, but that means getting people through court, which means more money spent on lawyers. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword right now. We're, paying to house these prisoners in other facilities, and then we're also paying to try to move through them faster. And so how would you kind of, considering what you said about the state and everything, is there anything that the county can do here? And if so, what would be kind of your approach?
Confronted my own version of this as mayor. Houston was the last major city in Texas that still had a city jail. And we were under a longstanding consent decree there. And I was trying to shut the jail down, and we discovered that we were arresting some 19,000 people a year for public intoxication. And I had to reduce the head count in order to send the real bad guys over to the Harris County jail, stop having to utilize the city jail. So working with Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, who was the mayor pro tem at the time, we created the Houston Center for Sobriety so that we could decriminalize these public intoxication cases, get them a cheaper solution, still have safety. People are picked up by the police for being under the influence of something. Instead of going to jail, it costs about a third as much. It costs hours less in time booking someone into the jail or taking them to the sobering center. And there's actually an opportunity for interaction with social workers and getting people back on their feet and dealing with their issues. Similarly, trying to homelessness is not a crime, and decriminalizing homelessness, finding solutions, getting people off addressing the problem rather than just like picking people up and incarcerating them. So there are ways to get around this, but this is the sheriff is an independent elected official. The judges that are dealing with these cases are doing yeoman's work, and they're I have great respect for the criminal court judges, but they are having to navigate these issues as well. There's not going to be a quick solution to any of this, but I did start by saying that we already know we have another problem in that just people sitting in the jail. I shout out to State Representative Jolanda Jones with a bill that she managed to pass with bipartisan support. One of the most liberal members of the Texas legislature passing a bill which says you can't hold somebody in jail longer than the punishment they would receive if they were actually adjudicated for the crime that they were arrested for. Those kinds of common sense solutions we need to implement. Keeping people out of the, decriminalizing certain things where it makes sense, keeping people out of the prison or the jail pipeline, pushing the state to step up and move their prisoners faster so that we don't have to, send our prisoners out of state while we're hosting theirs, and then working with all of the members of the criminal justice complex to try to streamline the process. But it's not gonna magically go away. That's a long-term issue.
And on that note, some people are actually specifically also asking within the topic of what we're discussing, specifically second chance programs for younger people who are maybe not, violent offenders, that sort of thing. And also people are very much quick to point out investment in mental health all around, right?
City of Houston, when I assume it's still the case, is one of the largest second chance employers in the region. And in a related issue, a lot of the things that we have put in place at the local level to try to make people feel safer actually makes it a lot harder for people to transition out of the criminal justice system. You can't rent an apartment. You can't rent an apartment in this complex if you have a felony record. Well, you've done you did the crime, you did your time, you've served, you've gotten out, and again, that's part of the homelessness cycle. If we don't allow people places to live, if we encourage places to say, oh, you don't rent to an ex-offender, where do they go? So that was just a side comment. I may have missed your question. That deals with homelessness as well. Harris County is the hospital district, Harris Health, it's MHMRA. So Harris County has a role in the provision of mental health services. We don't have nearly enough beds. We probably never will. So we have to make sure that we fund the ones we have efficiently, and that we prioritize better who has access to those beds so they have the most impact.
Okay, perfect. So we also, taking a little bit of a pivot, we have someone saying they're a first-time voter and they're Hispanic or Latino, and they're basically making the point that they feel that they are getting ignored for city positions in TERSs and management districts, planning commissions, things like that. And obviously Houston and the surrounding areas are very much, Hispanic, Latino populations. With everything going on, of course, politically, ICE, of course, is at the top of everyone's head. Can you speak to maybe what your approach would be if you were in this role to be leading such a Latino-centric or Hispanic-centric area? I guess not only your thoughts, but what does that look like for you?
I do regret that I don't speak a second language, as I wish I could communicate more effectively with a large portion of our population that is Spanish first. But I will point out first my track record as mayor of inclusion. I had a Hispanic advisory committee, and on my watch, the head of the airport system, the head of Metro, and the head of the Port Commission were all two Latinos and a Latina. They were the best people for the job, but I made sure that they were included in those appointments. The city of Houston had and obviously within neighborhood protection of language access, where we were able to connect the dozens and dozens of people of language, of different people who speak different languages here in the city of Houston that aren't commonly spoken, to the resources that they deserve as citizens. And that commitment will hold at the county level as well. Our democracy works best when everyone is included visibly in all the positions that are available in that democracy. And I'm going to continue that commitment. But clearly, we are in a fraught time in terms of ICE actions. And I think it's important to state we deserve secure borders. We all want to be safe, but what is the most horrifying thing to me is that ICE agents are now masked. That is, in my view, very un-American and inappropriate. And one of the hallmarks of living in America is that we have a justice system where we are able to see and hear our accusers. That it seems very constitutionally inappropriate to have groups showing up and snatching people off the street with their face masked, no identification. We depend on the courts to protect us from that, and our courts are failing us there.
If there are any policy level levers available to create more non-felony courts in Harris County. And John, you may need to weigh in on this a little bit as well. I don't know if we need to shed some light on where the role of the Harris County judge plays into all of that. I guess Mayor Parker first, are there any policy levers at that stage that would be able to create more non-felony courts?
Do not know. That's a great question. But I mean, it's a cost. Courts, the courthouse is busting at the seams, and there have been regular expansions, but I don't know. That's a John question.
That'll be outside of my realm of expertise a little bit as well. Judicial stuff is more of a Nicole question, but we
can definitely fact check and get back to you, because that is something that is interesting. And also, another, for sake of knowing where the bounds of your role would end or begin with this, someone's asking about redrawing district lines. Is that something that you, as the Harris County judge, would have any impact on? And if so, would it affect Houston or Harris County if, as the districts begin being redrawn again?
Only jurisdictions redraw their own boundaries. So the City of Houston council members vote on redrawing their boundaries. Commissioners and the judge, all the members of the Commissioners Court vote on those boundaries. But no, certainly I have opinions, and I think that the Trump administration is trying to disenfranchise Black and brown voters here in Texas in order to squeeze out 5 more Republican seats. I mean, not making any secret of it. And certainly I think those of us who are incensed by that should stand up and speak out, but there is no role officially for that.
And a little bit back to that question about, Latinos being such a big part of our community as well. And obviously as mayor, I would assume you had previous interactions with Governor Greg Abbott or Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. will you confirm that you did, so that I'm not just saying that, but also, someone was asking about how you would maybe, like John's question, lead or handle the position differently than Judge Hidalgo. With current politics, what they are, how would you deal with those relationships with the current governor and lieutenant governor or senators of Texas?
So as mayor, I actually dealt with Governor Perry and Governor Abbott. They transitioned there, and I had a productive working relationship with both. The fact that we have fundamental disagreements on a number of social issues, and actually today, just basic governance, I think isn't important in most of the interactions with in an emergency situation. I was able to call on Perry. I was able to call on Governor Abbott and ask for help. And we're Texans first, and they understood that, and I fully expect that to be the case going forward. I'm a believer in good trouble, as former Congressman John Lewis used to call it, good trouble. Don't pick stupid fights over things that you can't impact, but good trouble is important. Standing up and speaking out on issues that affect my constituents is something that I'm always going to be willing to do. Harris County is not alone in being a punching bag for the state. The big cities across the state of Texas, the blue urban counties, have been repeatedly targeted by the state to undermine their authority, undermine their ability to self-govern, undermine our ability to address our constituents' needs. I don't expect that to change. This effort to redistrict the congressional districts to, again, disenfranchise Black and brown voters, to squeeze out more white Republican districts, is an example of that kind of initiative. And that is absolutely where, while there's no direct role, I think the county judge and all local elected officials ought to stand up and speak out. But there's a way to do it professionally and respectfully, but forcefully. Good trouble, not stupid fights.
Well, on that note, good trouble. I think this is something everyone secretly wants to divide on, but we have someone asking about the Astrodome of all things. There have been so many plans that have leveraged, development from private to public and all of the things, and back with the idea of it'll be brought back to life, right? In your opinion, should Harris County invest in the Astrodome to some degree? What would you do if you were Harris County judge?
So the answer is yes. Now, I know we're getting near the end of the time. I'm Annise at AniseParker.com. You can go to my website, AniseParker.com. Shoot me an email, ask more questions if we don't get them here. But directly to your question about the Astrodome, this is when I tell everybody that for 3 years, I was on the board of the Astrodome Conservancy. I am passionate about the future of the Astrodome. I grew up it is history. It is the history of Houston and Harris County. It is the history of sports here. It's important, but it also makes financial sense. Why would we spend tens of millions of dollars to destroy something when we can spend an equivalent amount of money and make something that lasts for another 50, 100 years? But I have to wait till I get there, because there are a lot of, again, parties involved in that conversation.
Well, and on that note, I want to say thank you so much to Mayor Annise Parker, obviously, and to our reporter, John Lomax, for moderating the discussion today. Like I said, we will have this entire conversation up on YouTube within 48 hours. So head on over to the YouTube channel or keep an eye out in our HC Live newsletter for all the details when it goes live. But we also have a lot of other events coming up later these next few weeks, from interviewing Chef Thomas, the only James Beard award-winning chef from the Houston area. He's going to be coming on with our food team. And then we also will have an entire event all about how to apply for 504s and IEPs. So if you have any Houston HISD parents or families, definitely encourage them to tune in. But in the meantime, thank you again to Mayor Parker for the time, and to John Lomax for his time, and to everybody who tuned in today. Keep sending in your questions. You can always email them to us. We will continue our coverage, not only with John, but every one of our reporters will continue to cover the Astrodome and crime and climate change and all the things we discussed here today. So thank you so much, and you all stay safe. Take care.